it's massive nature.
On his wife's home cooking.
What? He was enthralled by New York and in what was informally dubbed the
Nobody can
Callum
see
Club.
you. You keep like going that way.
Well, my ass hurts from what we're sitting on, okay? It happens.
It's an ottoman.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable ottoman with my ass hanging half off because I'm fat. He acquired a group of encouraging... Okay, wait. He was enthralled by New York and in what was informally dubbed the Callum Club. He acquired a group of encouraging intellectual and literary friends who urged him to submit stories to Weird Tales. Editor Edwin Baird accepted many otherworldly dream cycle Lovecraft stories for the ailing publication, though they were heavily criticized by a section of the readership. Heavily.
Established informally some years before Lovecraft arrived in New York, the core Callum Club members were boys adventure novelist Henry Everett McNeil, the lawyer and anarchist writer James Ferdinand Morton Jr., and the poet Reinhard Kleiner.
Kleiner. I was looking at my eyes. They're hazel today.
Yeah, because you're full of shit.
Hazel, not brown, hazel.
Yeah, both full of shit.
Shh. I will beat you. On New Year's Day of 1925, Sonia moved to Cleveland for a job opportunity, and Lovecraft left Flatbush for a small first-floor apartment on 169 Clinton Street at the edge of Red Hook, a location which came to discomfort him greatly.
So now they're not living in the same place.
But they're still married, so he's not gay, right?
Later that year, the Callum Club...
Yeah.
4 regular attendees were joined by Lovecraft, along with his protege, Frank Belknap Long, bookseller George Willard Kirk, and Lovecraft's close friend Samuel Loveman. Loveman was Jewish, but was unaware of Lovecraft's nativist attitude.
Nativist, yeah. People that live here and think that this is their land, even though Europeans came here.
It has been suggested that Lovecraft, who disliked mention of sexual matters, was unaware that Loveman and some of his other friends were homosexual. I doubt it.
Oh, I think he knew. I think he wanted to join.
Like I said, if he's either asexual or gay, we'll see. It doesn't really say, but you know. Those are my theories.
Not long after the marriage, Green lost her business and her assets disappeared in a bank failure. She also became ill. Lovecraft made efforts to support his wife through regular jobs, but his lack of previous work experience meant he lacked proven marketable skills. After a few unsuccessful spells as a low-key clerk, his job-seeking became desultory.
The publisher of the Weird Tales attempted to put the Lost-Making magazine on a business footing and offered the job of editor to Lovecraft, who declined. Why would you decline a job? Citing his reluctance to relocate to Chicago. Think of the tragedy of such a move for an aged antiquarian, 34-year-old writer declared. 34. Right. How much are you at?
We don't have time for that.
Because I will be finishing this. I gotta go take her to her job. So.
This is my babysitting job, though. I have a real job now.
Safeway.
In a deli.
So I will see you guys in a few. Right now I'm by myself. Took Tommy to work, so now I get to finish this, and I'm gonna try to do another video. Anyways, so where we left off, I believe this is where we left off. Baird was replaced with Farnsworth Wright, whose writing Lovecraft had characterized Lovecraft as submissions were often rejected by Wright. This may have been partially due to the censorship guidelines improved by the aftermath of A Weird Tales story that hinted at necrophilia. Although after Lovecraft's death, Wright accepted many of the stories he had originally rejected. So it sounds like there's a personal vendetta, don't you think? Rain, moving where the work was relocated to Cincinnati and then to Cleveland. Her employment required constant travel. So she was able to travel for work, but he wouldn't go to Chicago. Added to the daunting reality of failure in a city with a large immigrant population, Lovecraft's single-room apartment at 169 Clinton Street in Brooklyn Heights, not far from working-class waterfront neighborhood Red Hook, was burglarized, leaving him with only the clothes he was wearing. That's sad. In August 1925, he wrote The Horror at Red Hook, and he is in the latter of which the narrator says, "My coming to New York had been a mistake, for whereas I had looked for poignant wonder and inspiration, I had found instead only a sense of horror and oppression, which threatened to master, paralyze, and annihilate me." It was around this time he wrote the outline for the Call of Cthulhu, which is theme of the insignificance of all humanity in the bibliographical study. H.P. Lovecraft Against the World, Against Life. Michael Houellebecq suggested that the misfortunes fed Lovecraft's central motivation as a writer, which he said was racial resentment. Like I said, he turned into a racist. With the weekly allowance Green sent, Lovecraft moved to a working-class area of Brooklyn Heights, where he subsidized to a tiny apartment. So he's still living off of her, even though they're not even living together. He had lost 40 pounds to 18 kilograms of weight by 1926 when he left for Providence. Back in Providence, Lovecraft lived in a spacious brown Victorian wooden house at 10 Barnes Street until 1933. The same address is given as the home of Dr. Willett in Lovecraft's The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. The period beginning after his return to Providence, the last decades of his life, was Lovecraft's most prolific. In that time, he produced his short stories as well as his longest works of fiction, The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath and The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, and The Mountains of Madness. He frequently revised works for other authors and did a large amount of ghostwriting, including The Mound, Winged Death, and The Diary of Alonzo Typer. Client Harry Houdini was laudatory and attempted to help Lovecraft by introducing him to the head of newspaper syndicate. Plans for further project was ended by Houdini's death, which we will be doing a video on Houdini around his death day. Which, if you guys know anything about Houdini, you know when he died. Although he was able to combine his distinctive style, elusive and amorphous description of horrified though passive narrators with the kind of stock content and action that the editor of Weird Tales wanted. Wright paid handsomely to snap up the Dunwich horror, which proved very popular and with readers. Lovecraft increasingly produced work that brought him no remuneration. Jeez. In other words, he wasn't really getting any admiration or, affecting a calm difference in the reception of his work. Lovecraft was in reality extremely sensitive to criticism and easily precipitated into withdrawal. He was known to give up trying to sell a story after it had been once rejected, sometimes as with The Shadow over Innsmouth, which including a rousing chase that supplied action. He wrote a story that might have been commercially viable but did not try to sell it. Lovecraft even ignored interested publishers. He failed to reply when one inquired about any novel Lovecraft might have ready. Although he had completed such a work, The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, it was never typed up. He wants to be a writer, but he's sure not trying very hard. A few years after Lovecraft had moved to Providence, he and his wife Sonia Green, having lived separately for so long, agreed to amicable divorce. What did they expect, not living together for so long? Green moved to California in 1933 and remarried in 1936, unaware that Lovecraft, despite his reassurances to the contrary, had never officially signed the final decree. So they weren't even. How did they not check that stuff back then? Oh no. I hope I don't have another coughing fit. When I tried to quit this last time, I had a huge coughing fit. Well, Lovecraft was never able to provide for even basic expenses by selling stories and doing paid literary work for others. He lived frugally, subsisting on an inheritance that was nearly depleted by the time he died. He sometimes went without food to be able to pay the cost of mailing letters. Food or mailing letters, I mean. Eventually, he was forced to move to meager lodging with his surviving aunt, who was also deeply affected by the suicide of his correspondent Robert E. Howard. In early 1937, he was diagnosed with cancer of the small intestine and suffered from malnutrition as a result. He lived in constant pain until his death. In March 15, 1937, in Providence, in accordance with his lifelong scientific curiosity, he kept a diary of his illness until close to the moment of his death. Lovecraft was listed along with his parents on the Phillips family monument. In 1977, fans erected a headstone in Swan Point Cemetery, in which they inscribed his name, the dates of his birth and death, and the phrase, "I am Providence," a line from one of his personal letters. Groups of enthusiasts annually observe the anniversaries of Lovecraft's death at Lade Observatory and of his birth at his gravesite. Seems kind of opposite of what I would do. In July of 2013, the Providence City Council designated H.P. Lovecraft Memorial Square and installed a commemorative sign at the intersection of Angeli and Prospect Streets near the author's former residence. Themes he liked to write about were forbidden knowledge, non-human influences on humanity, inherited guilt, fate, civilization under threat, race, risk of scientific era, religion, and superstition. Some of Lovecraft's work was inspired by his own nightmares. His interest started with his childhood days when his grandfather would tell him Gothic horror stories. Lovecraft's most significant literary influence was Edgar Allan Poe. He had a British writing style due to his love of British literature, like Lovecraft. Poe's work was out of step with the prevailing literary trends of his era. Both authors created distinctive singular worlds of fantasy and employed archaisms in their writings. This influence can be found in such works as the novella The Shadow over Innsmouth, where Lovecraft references Poe's story of the Imp of Perverse by name in Chapter 3, and his poem Nemesis, where the ghoul-guarded getaways of slumber suggest the ghoul-haunted woodland of Where found in Poe's Ilium. A direct quote from the poem and a reference to Poe's only novel, the narrative of Arthur Gordon, Pym of Nantucket, is alluded in Lovecraft's magnum opus as The Mountains of Madness. Both authors shared many biographical similarities as well, such as the loss of their fathers at young ages and an early interest in poetry. He was influenced by Arthur Mencken's carefully constructed tales concerning the survival of ancient evil into modern times in an otherwise realistic world, and his beliefs in hidden mysteries which lay behind reality. Lovecraft was also influenced by authors such as Oswald Spengler and Robert W. Chambers. Chambers was the writer of King in Yellow, of whom Lovecraft wrote in letter to Clark Ashton Smith. Chambers is like Robert Hughes and a few other fallen titans, equipped with right brains and education but wholly out of habit of using them. Lovecraft's discovery of the stories of Lord Dunsany, with a pantheon of mighty gods existing in dreamlike outer realms, moved his writings in a new direction, resulting in a series of imaginative fantasies in dreamland settings. Lovecraft also cited, sorry, it's getting hot. Lovecraft also cited Algernon Blackwood as an influence, quoting the centaur in the head of the paragraph of The Call of Cthulhu. He declared the Blackwood story, The Willows, to be the single best piece of weird fiction ever written. Another inspiration came from a completely different source, scientific progress, but in biology, anatomy, geology, and physics. His study of science contributed to Lovecraft's view of the human race as insignificant, powerless, and doomed in a materialistic and mechanistic universe. He's really old-fashioned. Lovecraft was a keen amateur astronomer from his youth, often visiting the Ladd Observatory in Providence and penning numerous astronomical articles for local newspapers. His astronomical telescope is now housed in the rooms of August Derleth Society. Lovecraft's materialistic views led him to espouse his philosophical views through his fiction. These philosophical views came to be called cosmicism. His creation of what is today often called the Cthulhu mythos, a pantheon of alien extra-dimensional deities and horrors which pervaded humanity and which are hinted at in eons-old myths and legends. The term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Lovecraft's correspondent and fellow author August Derleth. After Lovecraft's death, Lovecraft jocularly referred to his artificial mythology as Yog-Sothothery. I hope my cat didn't jump out this window. It's open quite a bit. Lovecraft considered himself a man, but best suited in the early 18th century. His writing styles, especially in his many letters, owes much to Augustan British writers of the Enlightenment, like Joseph Addison and Jonathan Swift. Among the books found in his library as evidence in Lovecraft's library by S.T. Joshi was The Seven Who Were Hanged by Leonid Andreyev, and a strange manuscript found in a copper cylinder by James D. Mill. Lovecraft's style has often been subjected to criticism, yet scholars such as S.T. Joshi have shown that Lovecraft consciously utilized a variety of literary devices to form a unique style of his own. This included conscious archaism, poetic techniques combined with essay form techniques, alteration, anaphoria, crescendo, transferred epithet, metaphor, symbolism, and colloquialism. Jesus. Like and my God, I heard of it. Anyways, like I said earlier, he's a very weird man. Very racist. Doesn't seem like he did much with his life. He wasn't very popular when he was alive. He became more popular, kind of like a cult classic. I guess Edgar Allan Poe is too, but I don't know. Learning more about him, cared about him less, for the fact that, I mean, I understand it's that time period, but I don't know. It seemed like he was kind of a user and kind of racist and just kind of, and obviously asexual or in the closet, because, I mean, he married one time and the sex was satisfactory and she had to pursue him, which is very rare in a man. Usually they're all over you. So anyways, what do you guys think? You know, pretty much the usual. Like and subscribe, share, please share, and read. Please watch my videos because they're very educational. I try to find tidbits of things that people may not know about people. I try to just educate people because history is interesting. What kind of stories, because we're going to be reading Edgar Allan Poe, would you like to hear from his book? I have a huge thick book of everything pretty much that Edgar Allan Poe wrote, and so I would like to figure out what you would. I want to read at least a couple in a few days, so I'd like to know what you'd like to hear me and Tommy read. See, this is day 3. Yeah, day 3 of Scarowing. I really hope you're enjoying it. It's very interesting. I have a few more very weird stories, along with authors and bios and stuff. Anyways, there's gonna be more stories coming up, so I hope you enjoy. Like I said, we're gonna try to do a little bit animated, like reading of Edgar Allan Poe, which will be fun. Maybe we'll try to get into character a little. Telltale Heart will be fun. I think that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna save my favorite poem though for when we do Edgar Allan Poe. But yeah, let's see. I'm gonna do another video, and this one's a long one, but some people, like, I didn't really know much about H.P. Lovecraft's life, so I hope that was informative. And I will be adding pictures, of course, like I've been doing, and maybe some GIFs. I almost said GIFs because I like to pick on Tommy for saying GIFs. The GIFs, because I thought they were kind of cool with Stephen King. But yeah, check out my other videos. I have some playlists. Run through them, please. If you're not listening to them, please give me some views. Share. Please share. I'm at 38 subscribers steadily for several weeks now. I'd like to please grow. It's just a hobby, of course. I'm not expecting to be the next Graveyard Girl, but I just like to get education out there. Anyways, I'm gonna start recording the next video and then get food because I haven't eaten today.